My man Julio,
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come out and talk about everything you're up to out here.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I met you at PowerCon and you had your booth set up and with OMG, what was it?
Alchemy.
OMG Alchemy.
Alchemy.
Yeah, and got to try some of your shroom elixirs. Is that what they're?
Yeah, they're tonics.
Tonics.
Yes.
Yep. And so
Medicinal mushroom tonics.
medicinal mushroom tonics. And so after our conversation, I was like, man, I don't know anybody that knows as much about mushrooms as you do,
Okay.
and as passionate
Cool.
about
Sometimes
it.
I feel like I don't know that much compared to some of the people that I admire when it comes to, the whole world of mycology.
Yeah.
But I'm not a scientist and I'm not a mycologist. I'm just kind of a passionate, curious forager and mushroom advocate.
Hey, yeah, I like it. I like
Yeah.
it. I'm passionate about learning about stuff, and so that's why I brought you on. And so I'm excited to learn more about it.
Awesome.
And so for everyone who doesn't know who you are, give us a little background on yourself and what you're up to.
Yeah, so I'm from Atlanta. That's where I was born, and I lived in the Caribbean for the teenage years of my life. And I grew up surfing, so I was connected to nature pretty young. I never wore shoes or a shirt
Love
for
that.
almost 10 years.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I was like always on the beach, always going on adventures. If I wasn't surfing, I was in the rainforest or something, or I did a lot of partying too. But when I had a lot of energy,
Yeah.
I was almost professional. I got pretty good,
Wow.
but I was also really passionate about the arts, philosophy, and art. And so I went to art school, and I had a teacher. It was like, if you want to pursue art or anything, you have to get off the island because it's too small, and the world's a lot bigger. So I ended up moving from PR, Puerto Rico, in 2005, and I moved to Minnesota, which was like the most foreign thing that I could have done. So I was just like, I'm gonna.
From the tropics to the tundra.
Yeah, so that was the first time that I was exposed to people from other countries, really.
Mm-hmm.
It was for the Mayo Clinic, kind of. It was Rochester. A lot of my friends were studying medicine, and so I just kind of tagged along to see, they were going to do PhD programs at the Mayo Clinic, and I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
But I was able to go up there to see what I wanted to do with my life, because at that point I didn't just want to do art. I wanted to do something a little bit more substantial.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the genesis of my exploration, and I got to be around a lot of cool people from all over the world and experience like a completely different culture than I was accustomed to,
Yeah.
being on the island. And so from there, I didn't last long in Minnesota. The winter was just too rough. It does get really cold up there.
You gotta keep your shirt on and keep your shoes
It's
on.
like minus 30, you can't go outside. So I think I went on a holiday after it was like Christmas break or something. I was gonna start college there, but went home for Christmas. When I came back, I was like, I can't do this. I can't live here. It was too depressing, to be honest with you. For me at least, just to be there, like stuck in a room and although I did really enjoy Minneapolis and St. Paul and all the people, but I just knew that I couldn't really live in that environment full time.
Yeah.
So I moved back to Georgia, did some more college, and I think that's where I first started my entrepreneurship. I was kind of waiting tables and going to school and really just wanted to do my own thing since forever. So, I first started at like helping people by making videos, and when you're doing video work and photography, and I got to meet a lot of really interesting people that way with a camera. By putting a camera in people's face, they're like, oh, you're like documenting what I'm doing. And so I use that as kind of a tool to meet very interesting people, not on purpose. It just kind of happened serendipitously. So, that's where I kind of had my first real mentor. I met this guy who was a professor of 3D printing at Georgia Tech, and I got into 3D printing, and he was like the guy to meet for that. And so that's where I started my first real successful company, which was I was 3D printing parts for drones and selling them on Amazon.
Wow.
And I would 3D print these things for like 2 cents and sell them for $40.
No way.
So it lasted like a couple months, and then all of a sudden, like a flood of parts from China that were doing the exact same thing, and it just saturated, and I wasn't selling anymore.
Dang.
But for a minute there, I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And at my house, I had this little machine, and I was 3D printing these little like. It was the stupidest thing, you know, like when you're doing photography with a drone, it doesn't have an aperture ring, so it doesn't capture motion correctly because of the frames per second. So in order for something to look fluid and realistic, it all depends on, you know, the speed of the frames per second, essentially. And there's no way to control that really without letting in too much light with a drone. So the correction for that is to put an ND filter, which is a neutral density filter on the drone, which will suppress some of the light coming in and allow you to keep the shutter open.
Yeah.
And it fixes the problem. And so I could do that and create that little part for like nothing. And then, you know, I going to art school, I just used all those skills to create packaging and a website. And, you know, I would spend my days doing kind of flying a drone around, getting cool footage. That was basically it, you know.
Was that your kind of platform for art? Like when you said that you went and you wanted to do art, was it photography and videography?
Or? I was so much more into graphic design.
Okay.
I mean, I did end up going to fine art school because I wanted to learn how to draw.
Yeah.
But I liked using the computer. I liked leveraging new technology, and I just thought like if there were any of these badass artists from back in, you know, the Renaissance, they would be using the cutting edge stuff. They wouldn't be sitting there using a pencil and paint. They'd be like
still using a feather.
They would be harnessing the power of film and harnessing the power of Photoshop and editing software and CAD and all this stuff. So I was just like, I want to learn this stuff. I was a college dropout basically because I would go to class and be learning software, and it was too slow. So I would just go and. I remember the first real money I spent was $1,000 on a computer and the software that I needed. And then I would spend like 10 hours learning Photoshop, come back to class, and I was like so far ahead of even the teacher at that point because I would just sit there up all night, and I was smoking a lot of weed back then.
Yeah.
So I would just smoke weed and like learn
yourself.
Photoshop endlessly, you know? And so it was college for me was too slow, I think, which is why I kind of I kept going back to school just because I couldn't feel like it was just because I didn't know what I wanted to do really, and I thought I'd find the answer there, but you know, I didn't really. I found it.
I mean, there's a lot of people that go through that struggle.
I found it outside. I found it just like trying to do stuff. So it's always been. I don't just want to like if I have an idea, I gotta get it out, you know. And if I don't try to get it out, and for me, I really love business, you know. Like when I have this idea, I'm gonna do it all the way, flesh it out, and then I'm gonna try to go sell it because that's the real test. If you can,
if you can create something,
if you can ship it. You know, my mentor Mark, he's my friend now. Mark McJunkin is his name. He would be like, you know, real. What would he say? He says like something like real designers ship or something like that. Like you gotta ship something. You gotta sell it and ship it somewhere. And I thought like that's something that's stuck with me forever. It's like make it and produce it and then sell it, you know. And then it's like real. So now my approach, I still paint, but I never painted for like to sell, you know. I like to design stuff. So that's where the arts come in, and that's applied to everything that I've done, including what I'm doing now with the mushroom thing.
Okay, so how did you go from like going in and out of college to learning all the Photoshop to being a drone piece builder to how did that translate into the mushroom? How did that kind of
so
play out?
you know, I had the opportunity when I was in my early 20s to go to Croatia, to go to Europe, and you know, I had family over there basically, and would go basically every year in the autumn. And in the autumn in Croatia, people forage for mushrooms. It's part of the culture there. You know, it's like the older guys are in the woods and the younger guys are in the woods, and they're all competing, looking for mushrooms like chanterelles and porcini, and all of the most sought after stuff in the world. Like there's truffles there, white truffle. There's a town in Croatia called Motovun, which is the smallest village in the world, I think, in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Really?
But it's famous for white truffles, which are the most expensive fungus in the world. Essentially, it grows under oak trees, and you use dogs. They used to use pigs, but now you use dogs, and they sniff them out. But alongside that, there's porcini, which are like these big bolete mushrooms, and there's chanterelles, which are the orange, like gourmet mushrooms that probably everybody knows about. Have you heard of?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so chanterelles grow there. There's the black version of that, which is called black trumpet.
Is Croatia like one of the hubs for mushrooms?
Yeah, just because it's an unindustrialized part of Europe, and it's so pristine. And we were close to the border of Bosnia, which is even more wild in a sense. So there's birch forests that are hilly and very damp in the autumn. So there's just
fostered good.
Yeah, there's just everything was out there, and going forage with people that had done it their whole lives, it was like, this is awesome. I'm in the woods. We're adventuring. You're not just there. You're there for like a reason. You're looking for stuff. There's like wild boar, so there's the potential to run into wild animals. It was pretty awesome.
I bet. It sounds like amazing.
And I was just like, I had a camera. I was so into photography, so I took a zillion pictures, and I was, part of, I think people that are photographers and stuff like that, they're just really curious, and so I was really like taking pictures, and I was just fascinated with mushrooms. I found like this, there's like a red mushroom that has white dots. It's called Amanita muscaria, or fly agaric.
Or the Mario.
The Mario Brother ones.
The Mario
Brothers mushroom is here in the woods, and it's one of the first pictures I took is of that mushroom. After I saw that in the woods, then I would, in the evenings after being in the forest all day, I would get on Google and just start trying to figure out all these different species that I was finding, which, it's so abundant in Croatia. Everything grows there in the autumn. So it was hundreds and hundreds of species, more than you could ever document. But I was really curious, what do they do? And Amanita muscaria had a reputation for being a psychedelic mushroom, right? And so it was actually used by the Vikings. And there's speculation that, like Christmas tree ornaments come from Amanita muscaria because they used to hang them in like conifers, Christmas trees essentially, to dry them.
Wow.
And then they would take those dry mushrooms and they would get basically drunk from the mushroom. It has a really like sedative, kind of sleepy, dreamlike effect, which is different than psilocybin, which is also a magic mushroom, right? But still has an effect, so I was like, what's out here in these woods? Who knows? But yeah, I just remember we would bring home stuff, and I started, by the third year that I was going there, I went there a lot over like 5 years. Basically every summer I'd go, or every autumn for almost a month. And essentially by the fourth year or something, I was pretty much a master. And I was bringing home stuff that the people that I was, with, they were scared to eat even. And I just remember like creating a risotto with like 5 different species of chanterelle, which they'd never even heard of at that point. There was like winter chanterelle, there was hedgehogs, I had black trumpets, orange chanterelle, yellow chanterelle, so there were like 5 different species. And I was throwing them all in a risotto, and they would let me eat first. And then they'd wait, and then, 6 hours later, he's not dead. So then they would come and eat, But, I would dry them and take them back with me, because you can bring back as much as you want of dried mushrooms from like this pristine, unindustrialized forest in Croatia. And that's what really started, I started to get really passionate about that as well, which is just like the quality of the food that you put in your body. When I would come back to America, the culture for food here, especially like back in 10 years ago when I was first going there, was way different than it is now. We have a renaissance now. People are understanding that the quality of food that you put in your body is medicine. It's like, it's what's going to keep you healthy. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I was changing the way that I was eating way back 10 years ago. Just
Wow.
realizing that, you know, everything there is made by somebody. It's artisanal food, essentially.
Mhm.
There's no industrialized food system, or there wasn't when I first started going there in the way that it exists here. Like the grocery stores were different. People would still trade food. People grew their own food. There was real barter, you know.
Yeah.
Real like fresh cheese would be made in the morning. Somebody people cured their own ham and prosciutto and different variations of that. And you know, the food system was so much different, and everything tasted way more delicious, you know, because of that, because of the quality of the ingredients. And that changed the way that I would eat and approach my own diet and food. So I would go to a restaurant and I'd be unsatisfied.
Yeah.
It's like, man, this pizza sucks. Like,
'Cause
there, I had like a $3 pizza that was 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
And I couldn't rationalize that. Like, I couldn't, in my own mind, understand why that was like that, you know?
Man.
So that changed everything.
Yeah. Who invited you to Croatia to like?
So yeah, so I
for
was,
your first mushroom foraging adventure.
you know, I was married back then. So I was married to a Croatian woman, and you know, I'm divorced now, which was a tough time for me. But essentially, I was with her brother, and we would go to the woods.
It was just something that they did.
Every single freaking day that I was there. It was our thing to do, you know, and if we weren't in the woods, we were out exploring the country. And so I got to see behind what was essentially the Iron Curtain, you know. So in the 90s, there was war there. It didn't end until like the late 90s. And in 2008, the economy crashed, but I had come into some money by luck, essentially. So we were doing pretty well, and we were able to go every summer for around 5 years. And that's where I got my real education. I didn't get it in college, you know. I got it in.
You got it in
travel, which is why like I tell kids like, save your money, don't go to school, go travel the world. If you're gonna spend $100 grand on college, you could travel the world for probably like 4 or 5 years and learn exponentially more through the people you meet and the experiences you have.
Yeah.
But I was lucky because I got to experience the country from the perspective of people that live there. So I got to see
Yeah, you weren't it's like you didn't feel like a tourist. You were
a tourist. I was with like the locals.
You were in the clan. You were in the tribe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was really lucky for me, and really a formative experience that has led me to where I am today, which is, you know, in the last year and a half, I definitely dropped out of the way that the system works, I guess, in a sense. You know, I just started believing and having faith in doing my own thing.
Yeah.
It was a spiritual awakening in a way for me that led me to this point. So I just started to really believe that, you know, if I tried to do it, and I had to risk a little bit there, but that I would get caught and I would float, you know?
Yeah. Always a little risk, a little bit of
that's the thing about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, a little bit of the unknown
Yeah.
that you're not really sure about.
You gotta be willing to lose it all.
Yeah,
in
you
a
really
sense,
do. Risk it all. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it really is. But when you're there, I guess, you know, it was scary for a long time. But when I actually took the leap, I was pretty confident. Like it was the timing. I could just feel that. Okay, now's the time. You know.
Yep. Little shift.
Yeah.
And so what happened at that time, or during that spiritual awakening that like told you to put yourself out there and take that risk? What was that kind of time period like for you, and how did you commit to it?
Yeah, so, you know, I came off of divorce, which for anybody that goes through that is the hardest thing you probably go through. Besides, you know, I haven't been through any, besides some childhood stuff, I haven't been through any like losing people that I love.
Me too. Yeah, I'm
Yet.
very grateful.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a buddy, a really close like cousin, best friend, when we were children, that he got into drugs and passed away. But the divorce thing was really rough, you know.
Yeah.
Nobody, you know, I got depressed, like hardcore depressed, you know, and so I got into, just religion essentially. I got into Christianity. I didn't find my place in the church really, but those principles and trying to figure out what I believe became really important because I felt really alone, and in that place I had to build myself back up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you find God is in those.
The deepest pit that you
when there's nobody else there to
Yeah.
help you. My parents didn't know what they can help me. Nobody could really help me get out of this battle that was going on in my own mind, my own soul. So I came out the other side of that with more. I guess when you go through something that is the worst thing that could happen and you survive it, then you're stronger for it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it. It's not
Yeah.
fun, but it was part of the reason that I don't have as much fear about stuff as I used to. I'm able to just kind of be faithful that things are gonna work out. Because the worst thing that could happen in my mind happened anyways.
Yeah.
And I survived, and things are way better for it now. But that sense of just confidence that everything will work out and things will pass, it allowed me to do what I'm doing now, I guess, in a way. But off of that, I changed everything in my life, like the type of work that I was doing. I started working with a group. I read this book called Neurogenesis. I was still I was really into the idea of diet and lifestyle, how that affects you as a human, how that can, I went through a change that was so dramatic that I looked different going on the other side, like the way that I changed my diet or my lifestyle. I got super healthy and I really got into what I was eating and why, and I mutated essentially from who I was to something else. I look younger, and I'm almost 40 now, but in my early 30s, I looked older than I was when I was 35 because of my diet change. And it didn't take long, it took a year. I was just working out all the time, eating super healthy. People called me a soupitarian because I would eat a soup every day. And the soup would be full of wild mushrooms and stock that I made myself. And I go get my own spring water, and it was uncompromising when it came to the way that I was eating and my lifestyle. I was getting sleep. My house was always clean. I was going through a hard time. But I was like, if I can make it, it'll be awesome. And when I get there, I want to be healthy. So although I was kind of not feeling like doing anything, I forced myself just by sheer willpower to be perfect. And I was being perfect, in the sense that I wasn't slipping up at all.
You were controlling what you can control.
Yeah, I just controlled as much as possible. And that was the only thing that I stopped watching TV completely. I got really into scripture a lot. I was reading only good stuff.
You went to a huge
I didn't put anything in my brain.
Self-discovery, self-development kind of phase.
Yeah, because I was at war with my own mind. I was there was part of me that was telling me that you're not gonna make it. You're a loser. You're done. And then there was another part that was fighting.
Yeah, and I like the way you said it, because you were the worst thing had already happened.
Yeah.
You're the divorce and everything already happened, and a lot of times we tell ourselves the worst case scenario. We basically picture the worst case scenario just so we can get ready for it, instead of having the faith where I'm gonna make it and I want to be healthy on that side. You're not even thinking about that negative, that worst case scenario again. And so that's awesome how you kind of reframe your thought process. And I like that you said that I'm gonna make it either way, but I want to be healthy on that side.
Yeah, when I get there, I want to be in a position to capitalize, and to just experience it. I was growing up surfing, it's something that's always there.
Yeah.
I always think about I want to essentially one day be on the beach again.
Yeah.
Living there.
Full circle.
And so I'm gonna get there, but when I get there, I want to be able to be there. So, and I still hold that now. I'm going to swim after this, and I hate swimming in pools full of chlorine.
Yeah.
But I have to do that in order to be ready for the
To
next
swim
time.
when you can get that
Yeah.
salt and
Yeah.
sand between your toes.
Which hasn't happened in a real way in a long time, you know?
Hey, it won't be long now. The way you're talking and thinking, I think it won't be long now.
Yeah. But you're right, there's a funny story about that too. I'm kind of getting prepared now to go to California.
Mm-hmm.
And we just met like the most amazing person that's out there in LA that are, you know, plugged into the surf world in a way that I could only dream of when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So like if you just stick with it, your dreams start to work out.
Oh yeah.
It's not gonna happen tomorrow for sure, you know. It's
Yeah.
gonna take years and years maybe, and once you get them, you're like, it doesn't seem as like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
You know? But they do end up working out, you know?
Yeah, with consistency and work, and it's like, and keeping the dream, and
Keeping
not
the dream.
changing your dream.
And also, you're gonna slip up. Like, you're gonna definitely, once things start going well again and you get a little bit complacent and comfortable,
Yeah.
then you're liable to take a slip,
Yeah.
you know? And for sure you probably will, you know? And then you just have to get back up and get going again. And that'll happen till you die.
Oh man.
You
Yeah. You are speaking some truth right now. I love it. I mean, it's, you gotta find what works for you, but it's like I see a lot of people that just change their motivation and change their end goal so much that they don't end up reaching anything because they're too ADD with their goals almost.
Yeah, and it's
So
you know,
think
especially as an
long-term.
American, you know,
Yeah.
we're so lucky.
Yeah.
We can change our goals whenever we want.
I
Here.
want
It's
this now.
seemingly, you know, you can do anything in this country, you know,
Yeah.
especially if you're like from kind of a middle class background. That's the problem is that your options are so wide open
Yeah.
that it becomes almost like a hurdle in itself where it can paralyze you. Like, what should I do? Is
Yeah.
the biggest question that
Get caught in hesitation.
most people. But when you're in a situation where you don't have that many options as to what you can do, then the path becomes narrow, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you're down really way and far out, you know, which is kind of what I experienced with divorce. I didn't have that many options. I just had to work my ass off and get out of the hole.
Mhm.
And there wasn't that many different paths that I could take.
Yeah.
It's like I had to just put my head down and walk a straight line.
Yeah. A lot of times when you are in a hole, there's only like one way out, you know, and it's
Things
like, you
become
know
really
that way.
clear. Things become really clear
Yeah.
down there, man. It's just
Well-
like the little light at the end of the tunnel is very narrow and focused. It's like there's only one way out,
Yeah.
you know, and that can be a blessing. And I
Yeah.
think it actually is for a lot of people that go through hard stuff. I mean, people that have gone through hard times, they tend to have like a more resilient character, you know,
Mhm.
and they're more focused, you know, because they had to be focused at some point. So they know what it is to have to be focused to survive.
Yeah.
So that's a blessing, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like that's the whole thing. Like carrying your cross is you know the hard crucifixion time of your life is what focuses you on what you're meant to be here for. You know, so you know I kind of wish that for everybody.
Yeah.
But it
Everyone needs that
sucks.
kind of. I mean, mine happened right over here in First Ward Park. I mean, like I told you earlier, I moved out here to change tires in NASCAR. They ended up cutting my contract,
Mhm.
and I moved down here for that community, and then I haven't seen them in a long time.
Mhm.
And so I felt like I just moved to Charlotte after being here for 2 years.
Mhm.
I was sitting in that park, and I was just like, man, like look at all these buildings and stuff, and I feel like I'm alone. You know, I feel like I got nothing.
By yourself.
Oh, I was utterly by myself in the park, in the rain, just sitting
Yeah.
there looking at the city, and I was just like, all right, I gotta do something, and then things just started folding. It was almost just like I had to flip the switch in my head to say like, I don't have to live like this.
Mhm.
And then things just started coming, started working for Lululemon, the idea for the podcast, and then
Yeah.
it all started coming. So
Same.
now I feel like I have a purpose. I feel like I'm living for something. I feel like this is helping, even if it's helping one or two people. I just want to like, now I'm doing something, you know?
Yeah, one or two is more than most.
Yeah.
I mean, really, going after the one is what it's all about.
Yeah.
You can't really do more than that, and you know, you don't really have to even try. It's just doing like your mission
Yeah.
is enough to
Yeah.
inspire somebody that they can do theirs. You know, and now it's really like I know that when people come in my atmosphere now, that they're leaving good. You know, I'm not rebellious, and we didn't know better, of course. You know, but I wasn't a good influence.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
You know, I wasn't. I was definitely like doing. I was curious, but it went both ways. You know, getting in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky to sort of get out of it. You know, some of us didn't. You know, my best friend didn't make it. You know, he went too far off the edge and was lost.
Yeah.
You know, so that's real too.
Yeah, I mean, I played with fire for a couple years, for a decent amount of time, matter of fact.
That's good too, though.
And yeah, I mean, it's like, I didn't get burned too bad, which was nice, but now it's like, I know that I'm kind of over that, you know? Now it's like, I can, like you said, like, I don't want to bring people down through my interactions. I felt like there was some times where I wasn't as true a person as I needed to be. In those times, just from lack of self-awareness and lack of how I come off to people. And now it's like, I mean, it's completely day and night, where it's like now I'm focused on how you're leaving the conversation, how you feel after, because I want you to feel good after you interact with me. I don't want to bring you down after an interaction.
You're trying to bring the light into the world.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to do it, really.
Yeah.
And it's really just you have to be it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You have to do what you're supposed to do, and it's the easiest thing. It's the simplest idea that everybody's arguing about right now. You know, for some reason it's like, no, we gotta. And in order to change the world, all you have to do is change yourself. You know, it's individual level. You know, it's not corporations that are the problem right now.
Yeah.
It's people. It's, you know, if you don't believe in something, don't support it. Don't be a part of it. Don't get tricked into thinking that you have to do something, because you don't.
Yeah.
You know, just face your worst fear. Do what you want to do. Now I can, and I still get, you know, the demon is still there. It's like, you know, it's not gonna work out.
Yeah.
You know.
But his voice is probably a little bit like you just whispered in the mic. It's not as loud as it once was.
Exactly.
It's just like, hey, remember me?
Pops in, you know, and I'm just like, now I use that as catalyzing fuel. It's like nitro.
Yeah.
Like, oh really? We'll see about that. You know, it's like war now. It's like, okay, I'll slay the dragon. I want the challenge. You know, the whole idea. There's a book called The Obstacle Is the Way, and when you become indifferent to the obstacle, like, okay, there's a problem. Yes, I'm not bored now. There's something to do. You know, there's something to solve. That's the whole wonderful thing about life. Is that it's.
What's that book? The Obstacle Is the What?
The obstacle is the way.
Is the way.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just all about the idea that, you know, the obstacle is a good thing. The challenges in life are what life's all about. If not, you'd be bored, you know?
Yeah.
Don't be complacent and you get too comfortable. That's where you get bored.
Yeah.
You know? I mean,
that's not where growth happens.
Yeah.
That's not where change happens.
It's fun, and it can feel good for a little while, but after a while, you know, you tend to just need something new. But if you're having some kind of a challenge that could last years, essentially, then you know that's usually what the way is. You know, it's just something that it's like, oh man, I got lists and lists on top of lists, and I'm never going to accomplish this. And that's how I feel right now. Like I've got 30 different lists going for my company. I just recently figured out how to organize myself in a way that was not, you know, for the last year and a half, I was carrying all these different tasks that I have to do kind of in my own brain, and it was driving me crazy, but I just didn't know how to organize myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm not like a business major or whatever. I don't think that helps anyways when it comes down to like actually doing something.
I don't know if there's like a business organization class.
There probably is, you know, and I've read a million books about how to organize yourself, but actually doing it is different than, you know, the theoretical. When you're actually like faced with, I tried to organize myself for a long time using the calendar and all this stuff, and until it became like, all right, I'm going crazy, and now I feel like if I put stuff on a calendar and I give myself some time in between, I can breathe.
Yeah.
Because before it was like, okay, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, and it's like, man, I'm never gonna finish all this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never do finish all that. It just keeps, there's always more.
Yeah.
So you just have to be like, okay, I'm gonna do these 3 things today.
Yeah, it's like, it's still progress. It's like, even if your to-do list still keep growing, it's like, if you still keep checking stuff off, you're still making progress.
Yeah, and that's essentially, I have an app called To Do.
To do.
Yeah,
Wow.
which is TEUX.
Wow.
Do.
Yeah.
But it's I figured out how to use it finally, and it's the simplest app in the world. You just create lists, but now I've got like multiple lists and
Wow.
kind of go through it in the morning, put stuff on my calendar that is like I have to do it today, and then the rest of the time I just leave it for myself,
Yeah.
which I think is important too for me. Part of me, my growth is the fact that I'm coming into like that awakening. I did come into a new job where I have a mentor from that job. And, you know, now I have other mentors that are in similar businesses, and I've learned a lot from them, and basically what not to do. try to like figure out what could be a stumbling block,
Yeah.
and that's pivotal, you know. And I feel like when you do come into your path, you do get those automatically. Like that's how you kind of know. So you start getting presented with helpers along the way.
Yeah.
So I just learned a lot about what not to do. Like I try to avoid stress as much as possible, because I know that stress is really what kills people. You know, that's what gets you sick. You get cancer from being stressed out.
From high levels of cortisol that you're carrying around all day, every day, when you wake up till you go to sleep.
Exactly. And if you're coming up to a challenge, that's like part of the exercise routines that I do, and the diet is, I get more strict with myself the more difficult the circumstances become. So if I'm getting to a point where there's like a trend, like a pivot, I can feel it, you know, I can feel it. Next week's gonna be like, I gotta be perfect next week, because it's on, like the battle is on, you know, I have to be sharp. And so I really start dialing in and getting myself honed, and it starts feeling like when you start to get more and more perfect, then things become more serendipitous.
Yeah,
Everything
when you're moving right, things
it's funny how like the
Legos start clicking together, and
confidence is starting to build. You know, you start feeling more and more powerful in a way. The path becomes more narrow. The objectives become more clear.
Opportunities start coming to you.
Yeah,
it's like
too many sometimes.
Yeah.
When I met you in PowerCom, I was like at the peak right there. Like I was prepared for that event. In a way, I was preparing for 2 months for that event without knowing it.
Wow.
But at that event, I was sharp as a knife.
You were sharp.
I was like a samurai sword. Like I just knew my shit. I didn't try to know it. I was working out. I was swimming like every single day. I was preparing for stuff that wasn't that, but it ended up being for that in a way.
Wow.
You know, for meeting you in a way. And relationships that came out of that were what it's all about. You know, and that's what's really gotten me through. It's like it hasn't been the fact that I've been profitable and I've been able to make a living. It's also been like, it's really been the relationships that have come through this business that I've started in.
Yeah, the relationships, the lifestyle changes, things like that, they're just gonna...
It just gets easier, it feels like. I mean, literally, like, it hasn't gotten harder since I've started. It keeps getting easier and more effortless, and the skill set is changing, and I'm starting to see what maybe it could end up being. So I'm like giving a lecture on Saturday. I've never done that before.
Nice.
But it's not just like for a random group of people, you know? Somebody asked me to do it at the gym, and I didn't know what it was for. They was like, hey, can you do a lecture for Mensa? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, I'll do it. It's like an hour and some mushrooms. I'm like, okay. So for a couple months, I was just like, okay, I gotta do this lecture, and I thought, no big deal.
Yeah.
Then I like Googled Mensa, and I'm like, oh man.
What's Mensa?
It's the highest IQ people in the world. So it's like it's gonna be a group of really intelligent people. And so then I was like, oh, now I have to really get
your P's and Q's.
Serious about this, which I have a lot of friends that are professors and teachers and stuff, and they're like, no big deal now. You just need like 20 slides, you're good.
Yeah.
Like, easy for you to say you do this every day, you know?
Yeah.
But for me, it's like that first doing something different, you know, like the first time I did a conference or an event like the one I met you at.
Yeah.
That was a very important week for me. Like,
I bet.
I felt that weight of, but now that I've done it, no
trade show.
big deal. It's
Yeah.
all good.
Yeah.
But this is like, I feel that, like, I've been trying to put together this lecture for the last month and a half now, where it's all in my head and I can't seem to like coalesce it into something that's gonna flow.
Yeah.
I know it'll come, but I want to say so much, and like honing it in is what's really been. And through that process, it's been amazing already for my company and what I do, because I've really had to dive in deep into what it is I actually do and try to tell that story in a way.
Yeah. Portray it so that it
Yeah.
engages people.
Yeah, it's, you know, it'll be anecdotal, but with some science, and but really just like how I got to where I am and why I think this is important, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but in the course of doing the research for this, I came up with a bunch of new product ideas. All this kind of stuff has been fruitful. Like the way that I'm, you know, I work with partners, like retail partners that sell my product. And the ones that do really well are the ones that I'm really intimate with. You know, the staff. I know their staff. I know the owner really well. They're really good friends. And
Yeah.
we talk all the time, and so they really understand what I'm doing, and they're able to convey that to people that are, you know, supporting me and buying my products.
Wow.
And so being able to do this lecture has given me the idea that now I should, you know, why not go and lecture the staff of other places and let them know what I'm thinking about, essentially.
Yeah.
And how that will help them not only with my products being sold and giving them to other people, or, you know, but also just for themselves.
Yeah.
So they can understand why I think it's important, how I think it'll help them health-wise.
Yeah. You gotta educate them so that they can,
Yeah.
one, they get
And that's what
knowledge,
it's all about.
and then they
At the
can
end of the day,
educate someone else.
Even more than the substance that's in the bottle, it's about the education that is being conveyed.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's been fruitful already. So even if I bomb,
Yeah. Even if you are.
and I have a friend that's a comedian, he tells jokes, you know, and comedians are serious people.
Oh, yeah.
You've heard Joe Rogan talk about it.
Yeah.
He practices his skit. I mean, they memorize their jokes.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, dude, just make sure you're having a good time, and you know, you should probably practice a little bit.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I have a background in like the restaurant industry. So for like 10 years, I was waiting tables at a very high level in fine dining restaurants, waiting on groups of 50 people. You know, I had to talk in front of groups for a long time. So I'm pretty comfortable talking in front of groups, fortunately. But part of that was that I would have like a spiel, like I knew what I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
So I was
General
confident.
idea, and then you bounce off of what other people are saying.
Yeah. So I know I can do it. I can talk in front of people, but I want it to be really good.
Yeah. I'm sure it will be too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure you're not going to go out there.
that's my most recent battle right now.
Yeah.
That's happening.
It sounds like, I mean, you got a couple days until Saturday.
Yeah, and I'm
So,
almost there.
It's almost,
You know,
yeah, won't be long now.
I have plenty of people to help me.
I love it. If you need any help, let me know. I'd be happy to help too.
Cool. Yeah.
But I think this is a good segue right into your products and what
Sure.
and what OMG Alchemy is producing and what they're up to. And so, if you want to dive in a little bit on that, then.
Sure. So it's a super simple idea, actually. In a way, what I do is I make root beer. Which sounds funny, but that's kind of what I do. My most successful product is it's made with lion's mane. It's a tonic. I call it a tonic, just because it's kind of a new category of beverage, which I don't know where to place it, but it's in a way it's really old school, and I like to think it's kind of ancient technology. You know, it's like if there was some kind of a witch doctor 10,000 years ago that people would go to because they were sick, how would he prepare their medicine, right? So he was probably using really good quality water. Maybe he gets honey from a beehive. He's got these roots. He knows how to ferment. So he's maybe grating the roots into some water, adding some honey, maybe brewing some kind of a tea. And you know, you ferment the tea, and it makes it more bioavailable. It preserves it. It's medicinal in ways that we're just now starting to comprehend, even in Western science. It's, you know, Eastern medicine is really more close to what I do, just because they, especially places like Japan and even China, they really understand how important fermented foods are, how medicinal they are, how to use ingredients, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I get spring water, I get good quality mushrooms that my buddy grows local. I make a tea with those mushrooms, which is called lion's mane, and then I ferment that with ginger and the best quality sugar I can get, which is from Ecuador, which is volcanic cane sugar,
Wow.
which just still has all the minerals and stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It takes like 2 weeks, to really ferment. Part of the fermentation process is it creates lactobacillus, which is a very healthy probiotic culture. The water itself, the method that I use unfiltered water, which just means it's like high mountain spring water. I've had it tested a lot. The water itself. Part of being a modern day human is that we're not playing in dirt anymore. We're not exposed to good quality soil, and in really good quality soil, there are organisms which. If you think about what the microbiome is, are you aware of the microbiome? It's kind of like humans are not just an organism. We kind of live in symbiosis with other organisms.
Oh yeah.
So the microbiome makes up a huge part of what makes you human. It's all these bugs and stuff.
So you mean like the gut?
The actual gut, the bacteria in the gut.
Yeah, they call it the same brain.
It's like a brain,
Yeah.
because there's actual nerve, brain cells in the gut.
Yeah.
These bugs that are in your gut, they're like essentially like little drug factories is the best way that I've heard it put. They create compounds. Those compounds can control your mood. They can control your cravings, all kinds of stuff, right?
Tons.
So how did this microbiome come in? How did we develop as humans to have a microbiome that works that way? Well, before there was modern plumbing, you drink water out of a stream. In that stream, there's organisms. Those organisms come from dirt, and we're lacking a lot of those organisms that are in the dirt now.
Wow.
Because our water is treated, filtered, bottled, sat on shelves. It's dead.
Yeah.
So I start with living water. I go get water from the most pristine source I can find, which is up in the mountains here. It's in Black Mountain, which I love taking people there. Actually, it's one of the things that I do all the time. I go there like 2 or 3 times.
How far is it from here?
2 hours.
Oh shoot.
Some of the best water on earth. It's been tested. We've had it tested in Germany. Multiple people have tested it. It's perfect for brewing. There's a reason there's like 300 breweries in that area, because they don't have to do anything to the water.
Yeah,
they can just straight brew beer.
Good water. Wow.
Yeah, so I start with really good water. I process it in a way where I can try to keep some of those bugs in the water. And then I use ginger. It's the most basic form of fermentation. Ginger beer is something that Jamaicans are really famous for, but you just grate ginger into water, add sugar. If you do that in an environment that has no oxygen, anaerobic, then it produces alcohol. If you do it open, then it becomes probiotic, and then the temperature is something that comes into play. So your house should be like 70 degrees,
Yeah.
longer fermentation, more lactobacillus, more butonic acid, which is extremely healthy as well. And then you're fermenting lion's mane tea, and lion's mane is a neurogenic mushroom. So it really regrows nerve cells, it regrows brain cells. This is legit.
Yeah,
it's been studied. There's
awesome.
tons of studies. One of the best, I guess it was like an experiment they did on mice, where the mice were injected with basically a neurotoxin, and it killed part of their brain and gave them the symptoms of Alzheimer's. And they were testing the mice it was in Japan. They had an environment where they put a toy in the mouse environment, the cage essentially. And before they had injected the mice with this neurotoxin, they were like checking out the toy and playing with it, and they were super excited. After that, they lost all interest, and you could, it's like the telltale signs of depression and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
It's just like disinterest, lack of willpower. It's physiological, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so they treated the mice for 2 weeks with lion's mane, and it regrew their brain, and they became interested in it. Like, they showed the proof of them becoming interested again. And so at this point, most of the studies that have been conducted have been on mice for lion's mane, but right now there's US clinical trials for the treatment of Alzheimer's with lion's mane, for the treatment of nerve damage with lion's patented a stack, and the reason he patented the stack is so that pharmaceuticals weren't able to patent the stack.
Yeah.
So he did that for us.
Yeah.
Which
So
is
that
why he's the man.
they don't
Because he can
raise
see the
prices
fucking
and everything
future.
like that. Yeah.
But the stack includes psilocybin, niacin, and lion's mane. So psilocybin is also a neurogenic mushroom,
Yeah.
in the same way that lion's mane is. However, which I think is awesome, it has a psychedelic effect. Niacin is vitamin D3, which is something that if you take it, it like flushes you red and makes you really itchy. It's because your body flushes you with blood, like the capillaries pop. And then lion's mane with the idea that most nerve damage is like in the extremities, and so it flushes the medicine, the polysaccharides and the compounds in the lion's mane to your extremities, so that it can repair. There's a myelin sheath on the so the nerve cell is like an axon, which is the cell, and it's protected by a myelin sheath, which is like covering.
Yeah.
And so it regrows that covering to protect the cell. Is one of the actions that it has, and so it's repairing nerve damage, and
So
it's a freaking amazing,
Yeah.
and it's hard to believe. It can't be patented, so nobody's gonna push to sell this. As far as the medical system that we have now, it's really, that's why we don't see like lion's mane medicine, and it's a money thing.
Yeah.
It's that there's no. For a big company like, I don't know, take whatever pharma company, they're not going to invest in marketing and in sales into something that they can't patent.
Yeah.
So.
And so when you say he patented the stack, does it mean?
It means that they can't take that stack and sell it as a drug.
So do people take those three as a stack? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So
People are doing it right now.
are they testing it? Or are they just?
Well, they're just doing like. They do it themselves. They just do it themselves.
Yeah.
Like if you YouTube it, all over YouTube, there's people that have been, I've been on this stack for 3 months, microdosing psilocybin with niacin and lion's mane.
Yeah.
And these are the effects that I felt, and it's, I guess it's anecdotal evidence because it's not like they're doing it's not Western style controlled study,
environment,
peer reviewed with like
Yeah.
what do they call that, where you have a test group that's given a placebo versus
it's
double
not,
blind is what it's called.
Yeah. But it's something that people are testing.
They're having results. My buddy, he was a football player. He played for Division I football here, and for sure, you hit your head enough, you're gonna have brain damage. Fighters talk about this.
Oh, yeah.
Football players talk about this. So this is something that can help a lot of people. Even, the thing about the modern diet, if you're eating preservatives, if you're eating pesticides, if you're eating food that's unhealthy for you because you don't know how to cook or the technique for preparation, which some of this stuff we've just lost. A lot of it's been lost. It's been preserved in a real way, especially in the Middle East, where the cradle of civilization, the techniques to go back. That's the stuff that I'm really interested in now when it comes to food. It's like, there's a lot of stuff there that we don't even know about.
Yeah.
Techniques for preparation, for getting the nutrition out of food that, right now with these wars it could be lost, which is like the most important heritage we have.
Yeah.
But anyway, diet, the modern diet is it's the opposite of neurogenic. It suppresses the brain, it kills brain cells. So you can either eat foods that encourage the growth of your brain, which there was an idea in the 90s because of some study that said that after 25 you can't grow any brain cells. That's bullshit. It turns out that that's not true. It's been shown that there's a lot of neurogenic substances and foods. There's lifestyle that you can have that even when you're 80, 90 years old, you can continue to regrow your brain and to not just that, but actually support and maintain it. So, if you exercise and eat healthy, exercise regrows brain cells. But then maintaining that growth is kind of the trick. And so there's food that you can eat that does that.
Yeah.
There's substances like lion's mane that encourages that. And so that's kind of what it's all about. Is this, the more control you have over your mind, the easier your life gets. And that's what really what I'm talking about when it comes to honing myself to be prepared is like, I know that if I take cold showers, if I work out, if I fast during the day, and if I eat certain food, then I'm just going to continue to get more and more sharp. And what that really means is that voice gets more dim and more dim to the point where it doesn't even exist anymore, and I'm just flowing, and there's nothing compromising my vision. You know, I'm just focused.
Yeah.
You know,
it's crazy because I've recently just heard about people doing the fecal transplants that have been
it's a crazy study
happening. Yeah, and they're doing that with rats too, and it's just like
there's the craziest one that I heard of was mom and her daughter. The mother had some kind of bacterial overgrowth that was really nasty, so they did a fecal transplant with her daughter that had a healthy microbiome, but her daughter was overweight, and so after they did that, she started to gain weight, and she couldn't control it with diet or anything. It was just her microbiome changed. And so that just goes to show you how powerful it is to where it can actually mutate your physical form. So the microbiome has control over the way your genetics express.
Yeah.
So they can turn things on and off.
Yeah, what was their thought process taking the daughter's?
Because her fecal matter was healthy, you know, it didn't have that bacterial overgrowth.
Yeah.
So the only way that you could cure this specific, which actually there's mushrooms in nature that could have done that, which they probably didn't know about. But for example, like birch polypore, which grows on the birch tree, and it was found on the Iceman, the real Iceman, not Wim Hof, but this like caveman that they found in Italy that dates back 5,000 years ago. He had birch polypore with him, and that was his medicine. So it's like antiparasitic, it kills overgrowth of bacteria. There's natural substances that can kill off. Turkey tail is another one that it encourages good bacteria like lactobacillus, and it kills off bad bacteria through beta glutens, which are like they're like if you're thinking like of a NASCAR, it'd be like the driver of the car, where it sells the car. The beta gluten is like the driver, and it just it steers, it guides the cells, and they think that's the function of it. I mean, that's why Eastern versus Western medicine. It's like in Eastern medicine, they're like this mushroom and all the compounds in it is healthy for you.
Yeah.
Where in Western, we've had a culture for isolating out the active compounds, but in a way they all work together. So their approach is more like if you have low Wong, which is low energy, then they prescribe turkey tail, and it could be because toxicity. You know, it could be your environment is toxic, and so it's a detoxifier, or it could be that your microbiome is out of whack. So there's multiple reasons you might have low energy and low willpower that are physiological, not just mental, because that's a big part of it too. It could just be that you went through a traumatic experience that made you depressed, but it could also be
you just
that you're just physiologically you're not doing so well, so your microbiome's fucked up. Or, you know, you're being exposed to toxic mold, or there's pollution. Like a month ago, we were experiencing 99-degree weather in October, which is weird, but it was really dry and the air was stagnant. So all the pollution from, there's like a steel factory over here that makes pipes, and the cars, and it was just sitting on top of us in Charlotte. And I remember that week I couldn't swim. I had such low willpower. Like I was like, what's wrong with me? I feel weird. And you know, I started thinking about it. I'm like, this is just like not me. You know, normally I'm like, able to, I just want to do stuff all day. But I really had low energy, low willpower.
Was this recently? Yeah. Oh, this is in October. Yeah. So this is
And I was like lying down in my bed during the day, like not able to move. And I got on my computer, and for whatever reason, I was working on this lecture, and I was listening to a talk that Paul Stamets gave. And he, you know, scientists, they gather so much data, and they try to just impart that to the world. So he's going over all these things that it does super fast. And one of the things he says is like how powerful turkey tail is for detoxification and for the microbiome. But he skips over that really quickly. So I'm like, okay, let me go back and focus on that little detail. And then I start going down the rabbit hole a little bit. I went to like WebMD, and I start, what are the symptoms of pollution? Or, you know, when you get that alert on your phone that says that the air quality is really bad, what does ozone do to you? What does that mean?
I've never gotten that notification. My iPhone's slipping up.
Yeah.
I didn't get nothing.
So essentially what ozone does is the symptoms are, it reduces your athletic ability. It, you know, makes you low energy, like all these exact same things that I went through. I'm like, okay, turkey tail is the solution for this, and I'm like, now I have a way to market, as it were, what turkey tail can be used for.
That's awesome.
So off of that, I'm probably going to do a new tonic that's with turkey tail. And then, you know, when people go to Viva Raw, to Scott and say, hey, you know, what does this do? He can be like, oh yeah, you know, are you feeling like you're kind of like low energy and stuff? Then you maybe you having some kind of a toxic response, or maybe your microbiome's out of whack in some sort of way. And so he can be like, here, you need this, you know? Which I think is like, that's medicine, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I can't call it that because I haven't gone through the channels.
Yeah.
But, you know, he can say that if you have these symptoms, this might help you.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like a suggestion.
Yeah.
Supports
but,
and high energy, things like that. There's ways you can like work around it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not so concerned with that.
Of course.
But it is kind of funny that would be a leap for a lot of people. You know, my doctor didn't prescribe this. This wasn't created in a lab.
Yeah.
That's like isolating chemicals and using different solvents to, you know, what it takes to actually isolate a chemical out is exposure to petrochemical solvents, and like chemistry is a pretty harsh thing when you're trying to isolate something out.
Yeah.
You have to use harsh chemicals, you know. I have a friend that's doing some chemistry stuff, and like the stuff that he uses is like, what the fuck? It's so,
Yeah.
I don't think you should be doing that. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
the way that like some of these chemicals smell deadly, you know. So anyway, I like the idea of using raw, natural ingredients, and you know, there's no harm in it. At the very least,
it's holistic.
It's healthy for you.
Yeah.
At the very least, whether the effect is placebo or not, I can't prove it, but the studies suggest that it's probably not. You know, although there's not a lot of study in the West for this kind of stuff, but turkey tail in the East is being used big time. You know, because of one of the compounds that it has, which is PSK, which if you go through chemotherapy, it just helps your immune system recover much more quickly for reasons that haven't really been quantified all the way. And can't be, I don't think. I mean, I have friends that are doctors at a very high level, and they're like, yeah, man, people they make shit up. You know, they do these studies, but at the same time, you know, they can't really prove it, these mechanisms. They just hypothesize, and, you know, actually proving things, there's no real solid black and white. You can't measure it. It's hard to measure.
Wow.
For many different reasons when it comes to scientific study. You know, when you take groups of people that you don't know what their lifestyle really is.
Yeah.
Or even if you take 20,000 people, there's 7 billion
And
people.
people live surveys and stuff too anyway.
Yeah, you know, and then, you know, if you do have enough money, then you can definitely market whatever idea you want in a very effective way. So that plays into it too.
Yeah.
And that's become a science. That's the real science that we've developed in the West. It's like our ability to just like
to impact people,
to convey ideas
Yeah.
in a very powerful, almost like I don't blame people for the way that they eat. To be honest.
way.
Yeah, I don't blame people. It's been reduced to a science. I used to work in advertising. I know the tricks that can be used to make you believe something or not. You know, and I know how. I mean, the best example is like Edison and Tesla. You know, the current wars, like DC versus AC current. Like Edison tried to kill Tesla and his idea by lobbying that AC current was deadly, and he would literally electrocute elephants and animals in the street with AC current and be like, see how dangerous this is? And now it's in all of our houses. So, you know, this is a business strategy that is used still to this day. We see it in our political system. I mean, I don't even think half the people that are running for president right now believe what they're saying. They're just saying the most controversial shit because they know that that's what's going to pop up on YouTube and people are actually going to click on.
All they need is a soundbite or a one-liner. And just
say something controversial, people will click on it, and then you get to deliver your real message. But then people convey that as like, oh, you know, that's why things are so extreme right now, because the ideas that make it through are super extreme.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but that's the way things are.
Yeah. Do you have any other products besides your lion's mane tonic?
Yes.
What else you got?
I'm doing something with reishi. Reishi is another medicinal mushroom, of course. It's called the mushroom of immortality, and it's a Shen tonic, which Shen in Eastern medicine is the higher self. It was really sought after by monks in the East because of that. It's really like a lot of people talk about its anti-anxiety effects and anti-inflammatory effects,
Yeah.
and anti-cancer effects. And I think that in the West we don't really know about it because, like I said before, it's not like something you make a tea out of it. It seems too good to be true. Like I can get something off of a tree and chop it into pieces and make a tea out of it and drink it and I'll be healthy. But that's the one that really got me into medicinal mushrooms because I found the first medicinal mushroom that I found and got really like obsessed with was reishi. I found it like on the side of the street in South Park or something.
Wow.
And then I made a tea out of it and I was drinking it throughout the winter. And at the time I was working in a restaurant called Living Kitchen, which was the first like really good job that I had, kind of like your Lululemon job, where I was doing my drink and we were trying to serve people food that was healthy. It was like all organic and I was working directly with the founder and the owner and being part of the strategy. But I remember my whole staff got the flu, everybody except for me. And I was drinking reishi. I was making kombucha with it. I was like taking the tea and I'm like, okay, how can I preserve this tea? So I threw a SCOBY on it, bottled it, and I was drinking that all winter. It tasted great, And I would give it to people and they would drink it and they would tell me like, man, I feel awesome after this. Like it would have an acute effect somehow, which I don't know if it was a reishi or something that was, I believe a lot in placebo as well. But for whatever reason, it was making a lot of my friends feel really good after they drink it. And so I started researching it and realizing how studied it's been. It's been studied forever. It goes way back. I mean, I think tea was one of the first real beverages that was commercialized in the world. And the reason that happened is because water wasn't always safe to drink. But like black tea, for example, is antibacterial, and so it kills off pathogens in the water. And so if you boil the water and then you brew tea, then you're pretty sure that the water you're drinking is healthy. And before that it was beer, which had the side effect of getting you drunk, and now it's tea, which you can be sober on, and still you're drinking healthy water. So it's all about the water. But I know that in China, people used to honor the emperor by bringing him tea that was made with special spring water and like special teas, and one of them was reishi tea, which he used to hoard. It's called the mushroom of immortality because it's thought to give longevity in life, and it's just generally really healthy. And the list of attributed kind of benefits, it's like forever. So it's like anti-cancer, it's like anti-inflammatory, it's it modulates your immune system, which means that if your immune system has, right now it's really being popularized for the idea that it can help with allergies, allergic response, which is just an immune response. So your immune system's out of control and it's kind of like attacking yourself. And so reishi modulates that by maybe bringing your immune system down, or it boosts it when it needs to be boosted. So that's the effect of reishi. And they think that happens through beta glucans, which are like I was saying, like the driver of the cells. Right? And so that's what reishi does. And so that one I make with turmeric, and it's a root beer, right? And it has kombucha. So I take the reishi tea, and part of it is fermented with kombucha, part of it is fermented with turmeric. Fermented turmeric is super anti-inflammatory.
I take some turmeric.
Everybody knows that. What people don't know about turmeric is that in order for it to be really effective, you need to ferment it. So I ferment the turmeric with this drink. It's fermented turmeric in reishi tea. It brews for about 2 weeks. It takes a long time, but the resulting drink is very anti-inflammatory, very anti-cancer, just health aid. It's really good in the wintertime if you're trying to not get the cold.
And is that, you said it was mixed with kombucha, so is it more of like an actual like drink instead of like a tonic, or is it still that tonic?
I mean, all the products that I make are highly concentrated. So you drink a little bit. You don't. You would want to take of this one. I usually take this one in the evening after I work out because it has a
especially after you worked out, the inflammation or anything like that.
It brings the inflammation down, and you know, the lion's mane is for the morning time, right? So you would take it the way you would take like apple cider vinegar in the morning to set your you break your fast with it. You know, you take it first thing in the morning, break your fast with it, and then it kind of sets your stomach right, and it gives you that focused, clean, your eyes are wide open. For me, the lion's mane has like this really amazing effect on verbal recall. So like you're not missing the words. You get and it compounds over time. So you kind of want to take it every morning, which each bottle I try to make so that it has the most amount of, the tea gets really bitter and doesn't taste good to the point where it can make you nauseous if it's too strong. So I try to formulate it in a way where I can get it to the most per bottle without it being
the highest potency without it taking
because I made it to the point where you want to throw up.
Where you're just like,
I'm like, how can I make this strong?
The line's coming out.
So I keep reducing it and reducing it down, and I've pretty much gotten it to the point where it's the strongest it can be, and you can still take a swig of it without feeling nauseous. So it just takes longer, more ginger, more fermentation. And so the Rishi's kind of the same idea. It's like, it's a tremendous amount of power in one bottle, but you only need a little bit. So I'm sure you could chug it. I wouldn't recommend it. And with these kind of things, which are supplements, there's not a recommended dose I can tell you. You have to gauge it yourself. So start with a little bit, and then take a little bit more. And I know people that tell me that they drink like half the bottle. I'm like, okay, you probably don't need to, but you can. And so I do that one, and then I do, part of the making the lion's mane is I use the whole mushroom. I like using the whole mushroom. I like knowing where things come from. So with the reishi, I go and forage that myself. It grows here. It grows in pretty pristine environment here. Like, it's just amazing to find this in the wild. You can tell that it's medicine. It grows on dead hemlock trees. And I think about it like this tree it's a huge tree. It's died. Now its spirit lives on in this, like all it's been condensed into this small little mushroom. All of that energy, which this mushroom is just like orange and red and vibrant, and it looks life-giving, right? It looks like the spirit of the tree has been condensed into this little mushroom, and it is breaking down like all of the different compounds that the tree are made of, and transmuting that into something else. So I take the whole mushroom, and with the lion's mane, it's a really good choice edible mushroom. So I have the leftover mushroom bodies, is what it's called, after it's been boiled and reduced down. So all that leftover mushroom, I marinate that and I dehydrate that, and it becomes mushroom jerky, which is amazing quality. And you couldn't tell the difference if I didn't tell you it was a mushroom. You probably wouldn't know, because it's not. Lion's mane doesn't look like a regular mushroom. It looks kind of like an alien, sort of. If you see it on a tree, it kind of looks like an icicle or something. It's really white, and it's got these tentacles that drip down from the mushroom. Has no, the appearance is not that of a mushroom at all. And if you smell it, it has, especially when it starts to go bad, it smells like fish. And so it's used a lot, kind of like fish, in cooking. People use it to make crab cakes and stuff like that. I've made pulled lion's mane sandwiches that would fool you into thinking it's pork, for sure, which is all a question of the way you season it. Part of the stuff that I do is I do a lot of dinners where I try to actually use the ingredients in cuisine to teach people about the mushrooms and to actually let them experience it. So like with lion's mane, I'll make pulled lion's mane sandwiches, or a million different things, anything you could think of. Crab cakes, what did I do recently? You can do tacos, like it's like carnitas if you season it right. Stuff like that. And then with the medicinal mushrooms, I'll make stocks. I'll make a medicinal mushroom stock, which will have reishi and turkey tail, and I'll make like a cream of mushroom soup that'll have these medicinal mushrooms in them. And then I cook all my dinners are all plant-based, so there's no animal products at all. The mushrooms are like the meat, which is another idea that I want people to start associating, just because as far as efficiency in growth, you can grow 200 pounds of oysters in a week and feed an army using very little substrate, like natural resources. It grows on anything, It grows in the dark. It needs very little water. You know, so as
Wow.
far as like food security, mushrooms are pretty amazing for the future, and they can be prepared exactly the way that meat is prepared. So I also use oyster mushrooms to prepare. I do like a jerky with oyster mushrooms, which ends up having the closest thing that I can get to like bacon bits. That's the idea. So it gets pretty close to being like bacon, and I use miso and different seasonings to get it there to kind of trick the palate, but it does have this like really meaty quality to it, and you know you can make carnitas with it that you won't know. Like if I prepare for you, my whole thing is trying to trick people.
Honestly,
I've had people
to get tricks. So you might
I've had people sitting at the table like, are you sure this isn't pork? You know, they're surprised. Like people that would never even, you know, there's kind of a mushroom phobia in our country, just because we haven't been exposed to them the way that maybe some Russian countries or Slavic countries have, or European countries, or
we're not
Asians.
out here foraging.
Yeah, there's not a lot of competition in the woods right now to forage for mushrooms, which I feel like is changing. You know, it feels like a lot, especially on Instagram. Like everybody's foraging now. I know that like my circle is pretty small actually, but you know, there's it's just technique, you know, and it just it's an idea, right? What is meat? You know, meat is about texture and, you know, the nutritional content. And actually mushrooms have a lot of the same amino acids that beef do and the chicken do. And they have minerals like phosphate and selenium and stuff like that you can't get in meat. And they're full of vitamin D3. They're the only other plant-based source or fungal-based source of vitamin D3 in the, you know, world. Besides, you know, you usually have to get that from animal products, but you can get that from mushrooms as well. And so it's really education and teaching people about that kind of stuff is part of
and
it.
just being open to it. I mean,
And when I first started doing this, like the farmer's market, I had like mushroom jerky and these drinks, and you know, I've had chef buddies be like, "You're for me, that's gross," you know, or like guys will walk by and I'll be like, "Yeah, mushroom jerky," like, you know, they'll just like kind of like gag. It's like it's so funny, you know. But it's because mushrooms are so mysterious, you know. They're here for maybe a week, and then they disappear. They've been used as poison to poison like emperors and popes, and there's a lot of like history and mystery behind them, which is really cool. Which is also like a lot of them haven't been studied, or if there are studies, they haven't been published, or if they have been published, they're kind of like owned by, you know, big, powerful institutions like the military industrial complex and pharmaceutical companies, and you know, a lot of thesis papers have been written about mushrooms. A lot of studies have been done. A lot of them are not on the internet. A lot of them are in these databases that we don't have access to, which is another fascinating thing. You know, I find stuff in the woods. I have a field guide that's for North Carolina, and I found almost everything in that field guide, and then I find stuff that's not in there. Which is awesome. And it just makes me feel like, man, I can't. You know, my route to having the lab, which I want, you know, I want to get there where I can do like the actual, you know, take the samples and grow the mycelium and stuff. But you know, I guess my path to get there is through this company and building this business to the point where I can have the space to actually do some more of that experimentation stuff, which for me is the fun part. You know?
Shoot, it's awesome seeing and hearing about it. I'll tell you that. I mean, it definitely sounds. Like I said, I haven't met anyone that has this much passion about mushrooms
I'll drop a couple names of other people that if your audience listens to this, they can also research. Like locally, Trad Cotter, he's in Greenville, South Carolina, which you know is an hour and something drive from Charlotte. Mushroom Mountain is the name of his company, and he's doing stuff with mushrooms that are just like next level. He's doing antibiotics that are, you know, we're having a problem now with these bugs that are antibiotic resistant. So he's developing antibiotics that are kind of crafted for the specific person's microbiome, so they can't be, so the bugs can't be resistant to it. It's just crazy, amazing research, and he's growing mushrooms. And the way that he talks about and thinks about mushrooms and the fungal kingdom is something that I've gleaned a lot from and I really admire. And then there's Paul Stamets, who's like the one of the most prolific mycologists in the world, and you know, he's connected all the way to Terence McKenna and like, you know, all these, you know, he was a real hippie and his research was on psilocybin. There's just a whole world out there. But if you just start with those two guys, Trav Cotter, Paul Stamets, and Paul Stamets was on Joe Rogan. His talk is amazing. You should listen to it.
Yeah, I'll check it out for sure.
He talks about being cured of stuttering on a psilocybin trip. So he was like, which I don't want to tell the whole story, but basically he took it like a super heroic dose, and he went up into a tree or something, and a thunderstorm rolled through and basically cured him of stuttering.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool. But yeah, let's dive into you a little bit now.
Sure.
And so do you have like, because you sound like you've been through a lot, so what are some like routines and habits that you have that you could recommend to someone else to get more out of their day, their week, their life, anything like that?
So recently, I've reserved the first like 4 hours of the day to doing whatever I want to do, you know? And usually it consists of sitting in front of the computer and organizing myself and just like looking at my list of stuff to do, starting to drop things into the calendar, taking my time, you know, I'll make myself some coffee or something, or have some lion's mane, or I'll skip breakfast sometimes. But essentially it's free time. Like those first 4 hours of the day, you know, the earlier you get up, the better, I guess.
Yeah.
Although, you know, sometimes it's 6:30 for me, sometimes it's, you know, 8, 9. For the most part, I get up essentially pretty early, but not compared to somebody that maybe once in a while I'll wake up at like 5 or 4, or I'll just be up and I can't go back to sleep. But those first few hours of the day, I think, are really important to kind of what do you say? Kind of like just dial it back in and refocus yourself on what you want and why you're doing what you're doing. So it's the planning phase of my day.
Set yourself up for a good day.
I like to be by myself to do that. You know, my girlfriend's gone to work. I get to work from the house a lot because I have my own business, so it's pretty awesome. I just sit there and I organize myself. So that's the first thing. And then when I do kind of make my calendar, I mean, some days I'm busier than other days, especially if I'm doing production where I'm actually making product, then that's like, it takes time. But for the most part, I try to schedule some things and leave time in between. And so that has been amazing. It's really taken all the anxiety out of my life, which might have been there before because I was not as organized.
Hey, honestly, I'm gonna download To Do right after this. So, because I need to up my organization as well.
Yeah, it just helps a lot to know what you're gonna do that day. I don't wake up anymore feeling like what am I gonna do? Which, as an entrepreneur, without having a boss or anybody telling you what you're supposed to do, that's everything. Knowing what you're gonna do that day can take a lot of the fear out of doing your own thing. You know, without having, you know, which is awesome. It's great to be your own boss, but your own boss is like the worst boss too. You know, I can be harder on myself than anybody else can, for sure.
Or sometimes easier on yourself too.
Yeah, sometimes I can be very complacent, comfortable. So it's helped me tremendously that just that little routine. I think that's the best thing that I've learned recently. And then, you know, you are what you eat, and what you eat isn't just what you put in your body, it's what you take into your brain, you know, your mind. And I do suffer from it just like probably everybody else, where I get pulled into these, like, the politics and the news sometimes. And, you know, I like to understand what's going on in the world, but I find that to be very distracting to my mission. You know, it doesn't help it to get too caught up into the politics of the world at large. You know, what's going on locally is usually more important to me. You know. So I now have kind of a network of people that let me know what's going on. To especially, you know, it's important for me to get out there and network, I guess. But you know, I usually try to let myself be led by other people. So like ago, and I went and got out of the city, and that is also something that I highly suggest is like get out into the natural world and re-ground yourself with where you come from, which is the forest and nature, and that'll change your perspective back to where it needs to be when it comes to, you know, life.
Yeah, I like that. I do a lot of I like grounding and I'll go to the park and kick my shoes off, kick my shirt off, lay down and just lay on the grass and everything like that.
Yeah.
So it's a good habit, it really is.
Really good forests, I tend to think of them like there's a book that I read called The Heart of the World, it's about sojourning and adventuring. And back in the early 1900s, people used to go and try to find Shangri-La, heaven on earth. There was this whole thing where, you know, explorers, like there was a whole culture for it of just exploration and adventure. And I was obsessed with that book. I read it like 3 or 4 times because in the 90s there was still a place in the world that hadn't been conquered by humans. Nobody had ever been there before. It was impossible to fly in. The only way to get there was like having a specific set of skills. Like you had to be able to kayak. It was up in the Himalayas at like 20,000 feet, and the speculation was that there's a huge waterfall up there, like a 100-foot waterfall that hadn't been discovered yet. And so there's places like that here. Brevard is a place like that. There's a waterfall called Looking Glass, and if you go there, that is a Shangri-La. You know, that is a place on earth that's just special. It's got a spirit around it, and you can get recharged by places like that. So I would suggest trying to find whatever that place is that's closest to you, and a lot of times it'll be in association with a really big waterfall. So go find that place and hang out there, and you'll get recharged in a way that nothing else can recharge you. Wow. It's like a spiritual recharge, and just the way that the air smells, and usually there's no service up there. You know, the atmosphere is like full of humidity, and it's a really special. That's what we need to preserve on the planet, and those are the places that should be everywhere. You know, it's not in the city, but the city should be that. You know, in a way.
Wow, I like that. And I like to finish off with this question because I think I can take a page out of anyone's book and learn something from them. And so if you had to take a page out of your personal book and give it to the world, what would that page say?
Yeah, I mean, you can just expect to be challenged and just start. The way that I frame it now is different than I used to, because now, you know, that adversary, that challenge that you might face, which could manifest through somebody that's really close to you, like, you know, your spouse or your girlfriend or your dad or something like that.
Yeah.
They might try to, you know, sometimes they can say things that'll make you upset, you know. It might trigger you, you know. But just realize that isn't necessarily them. It's just the universe using them to push you to maybe do something that you need to do. And I started using those experiences as, which are uncomfortable. You know, those uncomfortable points in your life where you're like, you don't feel like doing anything, maybe, or you're very tempted to just lie in bed and just lie down. That's when you really need to get up and start fighting, because there's a breakthrough that's coming probably. There's something coming that that manifestation, if you can overcome it, on the other side of that, that's where you achieve the next level. You know, that next level, and once you're on that ground, you're on that ground. You know, it's solid, but it'll come again, and they keep coming, and it's infinite. That's what I think infinity really is that idea that it's just ever increasing levels that you can break through. But it always comes with like a final boss, a final challenge, and it won't just come in your personal life. Like there's a book called The War of Art, which is all about resistance. And if you're trying to create something new in the world, you're gonna have to break through walls. And they manifest in so many ways that it's crazy. Like it's usually like you can't even believe it. You know, like maybe like a month ago, I fell off of a scooter and I broke one hand and I messed up my other hand, and I was like, I couldn't use my hand, and there was tons of stuff that I had to do, and I'm like, I had come off of the last month other challenges that were similar, and it's usually stuff that nobody can really comprehend but they're meant for you, you know? but that's what it's all about. It's like that's like that's the battle. It's if you start to frame it as like that's the fun thing, that's what keeps it interesting, and you fight through that, and then you come up out of it the other side, holding on to. It usually tests your faith, and it tests what you believe in. But that's how you prove it, you know.
Yeah.
So
Oh man.
that's what I would think about.
Expect to be challenged. I love that. And then, so where can people find you in the community out here in Charlotte?
So I mean, I'm definitely online.
Yeah, plugging your social
Instagram,
media too.
Yeah, OMG Alchemy. OMGAlchemy.com is the website. You can get product through there. I would go to one of the stores, especially Viva Raw, which is in the 7th Street Public Market, and talk to them about what the products are. They can definitely explain them really well. And then we do events all the time. We do dinners like the one I was telling you about.
Yeah.
I'm doing Veg Fest tomorrow. Veg Fest Junior at Camp North End. I'll have a booth there. And yeah, I'm pretty engaged with the social media. You can drop me a line if you want to know where any of these places are that I'm talking about, like the spring that I go to, or the forest that I visit, which are actually full of mushrooms as well. I can just drop me a line.
Perfect.
I'm pretty accessible right now. At this point, I'm still answering because it's still like I'm still super small, which I love. This like garage band phase of the business. I'm really embracing like the I don't. It's a little bit insecure sometimes because it's still new, but at the same time, it still affords me the opportunity to almost engage with everybody. Like everybody that follows me on Instagram, I've almost met all those people in person.
Yeah.
I haven't used anything to build my following or anything like that. It's all been like personal engagement and meeting people.
How it should be,
I've taken, it's very slow organic growth, which is what I believe in when it comes to business. I think that growing slowly over 100 years is better than growing quickly over 10 and then peaking out or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Unless you ship it. Unless you grow it for 10 years and you ship it.
Well, I mean, I make all the product myself right now too, so I get to put hands on everything, and every batch that I make improves, which is really cool. There's no way I'll scale it if I can't keep that level of quality,
of detail.
Yeah, and I'm really cognizant of not, usually when people give me business advice that are business people, I tend to think that they're wrong. And I'm like, okay, if this is the way everybody else does it, I'm looking for the way that most people don't do it. And so the cool thing about being small right now is that I do get to kind of engage with everybody that
reaches out. Yeah. Love that. And then any last words for the listeners?
Yeah, go out and get in the woods, man. Just don't. Usually, if you feel like you have too much to do and you can't take time to get away for yourself, that's when you most need to take time to get away for yourself, and you will be rewarded for that.
Yeah.
So don't get stuck, in just the day-to-day grind of it either.
Yeah.
There's plenty of time to just enjoy and be faithful that you can enjoy life, and you're not gonna. The worst isn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
If you just enjoy your time,
Yeah.
And as an adult, that's tough because you're supposed to be responsible and make as much money as possible, save it in the bank, and but have faith that it'll be fine either way. It'll work out. Don't get caught up in this idea that you need to make a bunch of money so that you can retire.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Yeah. Well, don't start living when you retire.
Exactly.
Live now.
Yeah. Live now.
Yeah. I love it. Julio, appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, brother.